commission. Let us start with attendance, which I will lead. So starting with myself, David Falconley as chair, I will now move to see if Vice Chair Charles Chavis is with us. I do not see him. Okay. All right. Let me see. Just going down the line here. Uh, Acknowledging Commissioner Snowden. I see him on the line. Commissioner Haley, Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Mobley. I also see Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Creary, Commissioner Armenti, Commissioner Barrett, Commissioner Dupree Wilson, Commissioner Seward. Acknowledging our staff. I see Joy on the line. I see Jordana is with us. I see Kristen. I see Sophie, and I believe that is it. I don't think Zanita is with us this morning. Okay. Cool. So let me just make sure we have quorum. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, we have quorum. Wonderful. Okay. Commissioner Snowden, do you mean to show your screen right now? Commissioner Snowden? Okay, there you go. That answers that question. All right. Okay, thank you all. Moving forth with our agenda, and to commissioners who will join us, I'll make sure to acknowledge them as they join us this morning. So thank you all that are here so far. Moving on to approval of last month's business meeting minutes. So to commissioners, please take a look. If you have not already, please let me know if you have any questions, any feedback for the minutes. And if not, if someone can make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Commissioner Seworth moving. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Seward, were you trying to speak? I wasn't able to hear you.
I said so moved.
Anybody else hear Commissioner Seward? I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah.
So it's just me? Oh, Lord. Okay. All right. Hold on. My apologies. All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Was there a second?
Yes, I seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. The motion carries. Thank you all. Okay. Moving forth with our agenda, now to members of the public. As always, we thank you for being here. If you would like to introduce yourself in the chat, please do so by providing your name, any organizational affiliations that you'd like to share. And as always, we are very grateful for you being here and for holding this commission accountable. So thank you again to members of the public who have joined us this morning. Moving forward with our agenda to my comments, of which I don't really have any outstanding comments. Always just gratitude and appreciation to my fellow commissioners, as well as the staff, as well as the public, for being here and being a part of this process. It is an iterative process, one where we continue to learn and continue to improve where we need to improve. So I will leave it at that, and now just open the floor to our soul check. So to any members of the commission that just want to share something that is on their minds or on their souls at this time, please feel free to do so. Yes, Commissioner Armenti, yes, again.
So I just want to at least quickly acknowledge that we are approaching the 90th anniversary, or 90th, of the last documented, recorded racial terror lynching in Maryland of George Armwood. As many of us in this circle know, that was not only the last, but also one of the most highly publicized and highly documented, that has been, a motivating factor in many of us learning about and getting involved in this work, including the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project. I know often orienting its annual meetings around that commemoration. Anniversary makes it sound like a positive thing, which obviously we're not saying. So just acknowledging that date and that significance, and as kind of a cornerstone, as well as a reason for us to continue to learn and bring forth the truth on that event and the various other victims that we acknowledge through the commission. So just acknowledging, honoring George Armwood, his family, descendants, etc. today.
Thank you, Commissioner Ahmed. I appreciate you elevating that and making sure we all know to provide that honor and respect for this moment. It's the work that we're doing. So the least we can do is to again acknowledge these anniversaries as they do arise when we have the chance to do so. So thank you for that, Commissioner Armenti. Any other commissioners have anything that they would like to share at this time?
I'll just give a shout out to Will Schwartz and the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project for another successful annual conference this past weekend at Goucher College. It was the first time we've gone to a full day of conference, and the presentations were excellent. Keep an eye out for the video, which I'm sure will be getting up there as soon as he's recovered from it. But it was an excellent day, and hearing Clint Smith was just, it was fantastic. So keep an eye out for that, and congratulations to the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project for another successful conference.
Thank you. Much appreciation as always to Will and to MLMP for all the incredible work that they've done, including being a champion for this commission. So thank you for that. I quickly want to acknowledge Rasia Banks, who is joining us this morning. We are connected through the Emmett Till cold case and prosecution program. So thank you for joining us this morning. Would you like to say a few words, be a part of our soul check, just to introduce yourself? It would be pretty dope.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So I guess morning here. My name is Rasia Banks, and I am the project coordinator for the Emmett Till Cold Case Prosecutions and Investigations Program, and I was invited this morning by Commissioner Curry, and I just wanted to say, through our interaction and meeting, being able to discuss more of the work that you all do in depth, it was really, really helpful. And I just want to say thank you for first of all, holding space for this work and pushing through. And as your training and technical assistance provider, I am here to kind of help this work be a little bit easier for y'all to navigate. So please use me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Rasia. My apologies. As someone who's had his name butchered his entire life, I'm very sensitive to that. So my apologies. Thank you, Rasia. I appreciate that. Now I know. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate your support and your assistance of our work. Thank you so much. Any other commissioners before we move on? I want to make sure we make space. All right. Well, thank you for those who shared. I appreciate you. Moving on with our agenda to committee reports. So any of the committees that have updates to share, please feel free to do so at this time. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Davis, I see your hand.
So I don't have a report for the logistics committee, but I guess my biggest question, because I do want to start to re-engage with the logistics committee is, when we're going to start to have conversations about setting up dates for 2024, because I think that's going to be imperative in terms of planning, and will help us move forward.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Totally understood. Now that we have Jordana installed as our project manager, it's very much our intent to start that scheduling and to think about the logistics with more intentionality. So just as an update to everyone in that regard. Yes, Commissioner Creary, I see you.
Yes, to that end, as I've been thinking about, hearings and what it's going to take to kind of start moving, we still have 3 counties where we don't have local coalitions of the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project. And so I was wondering if it might be appropriate to ask the logistics committee to work with Ms. Claiborne to start reaching out to communities in those 3 counties, specifically Calvert, Caroline, and Queen Anne's counties, to start building, those networks that we're going to need so that we can stage the hearings in those counties. As I said, those are going to be the 3 most challenging ones. So I think if we can start preparing the ground, that would be a very helpful thing.
Yeah, I think we'll have to go back to the table and visit. We had made contacts with the local NAACP in Calvert County. So I think that's probably the group that will probably move forward with working with the Calvert County hearing, but I would agree that we need to find for the other 2 counties as well.
Thank you for that update. Very quickly, just want to acknowledge that Zanita Hurley has joined us this morning. Greetings, Zanita. Hope you're doing well. Any other updates from committees at this time?
I guess the update for the reconciliation committee that I had was to invite Roisha to share anything she would like about the work she is doing and how she has been supporting us, not least of which is helping to facilitate the funding that we have. So I will just turn things over to Roisha if you would like to share anything.
Yes, and so maybe I need to do a better job too at expressing what it is that we do as a training and technical assistance provider. So BJA is a grant funded, right? And so we have been called to be the training and technical assistance provider alongside the behavioral science unit. We are out of Fox Valley in Appleton, Wisconsin, and so that enables us to do a multitude of things, training and webinars. We are one of the oldest training and technical assistance providers. If you're familiar with Amber Alert, that's a system that came up out of our office. In the past, I have seen, us come in and do trainings and webinars, and hosted by subject matter experts, whether that's online or in person, a lot of systems trainings and things like that. But with the Emmett Till cold case grant, it's very, very different from a lot of the other things that we see. And so if you think about the challenges that kind of come up, obviously, this is a very emotionally charged program. There's a lot of emotions involved. It's racially motivated. It's political. There's so many other nuances involved. And so what we try to do as a training and technical assistance provider is how can we meet the need in a more creative way? We have a lot of support from BJA. So for example, Houston is also a recipient of this award, and their training for their detectives looked like going through the Buffalo Soldier Museum, and understanding African American history from from the cultural lens, but also the city. How has Texas been impacted by African American people? How's the city of Houston have been impacted in the LGBTQ community? And the work that they're doing is very different. And so we have subject matter experts from literally around the nation. And we're specifically looking forward to doing restorative practice work with this commission and the Maryland Lynching Project. And so we actually just had one of my colleagues join us right now, Greg, who leads the restorative justice, restorative practice work for our company. And that's kind of the lens that we want to assist and help you all with. And so, like I said, we're a training and technical assistance provider. So that can be anything from subject matter experts or implementation science. I mean, the range of assistance can be very, very broad. And so for other sites that might look like, assistance with genealogy and the things like, we have so many different things from science and law enforcement and attorneys and just a whole Rolodex of folks. And so really there isn't a need that we can't meet. We just want to be able to provide training and technical assistance to help you guys do your work more efficiently and meet the need of the grant as well. So I know restorative practices was in there as well. Oh, hi, Miss Anita. I see that you joined.
Go ahead, Anita.
Hi, yes, no, thank you, Mauricio. Great to listen to you talk about the work that you provide, the assistance you provide grant recipients. And I thought I would just interject, particularly because you mentioned that we've been joined by your colleague, Greg Brown, and let everyone know the executive team, so the chair, co-chairs, and the committee chairs should have received the proposal that you all put together in terms of a 3-day training that you would provide to commissioners that we could, open up to our local coalitions as well. But I just happen to have the benefit of attending a webinar that Roisha and Greg put on for grant recipients on restorative practices. And I asked the question at the end about, how, we could get this type of resource for the commission, because that was contemplated under the grant. And we had funding to do so. And to my extreme pleasure, Roisha said, this is a training we could actually provide to grant recipients free of cost. And so I know we have been, as a commission, talking for some time about reaching out to different trainers around issues like trauma-informed interviewing techniques and restorative practices, how we could, ways that we could use these next couple of months to prepare for starting back up with the public hearings next year. And I think that, Greg and Roisha and some other of the technical and training assistance providers can have put together a proposal for the commission to consider over 3 days. I mean, they're very flexible, which is what I really love about them, but they have some really great strategies on how to interview, how to talk to, not obviously we're talking about, those who have been traumatized by the legacy of these lynchings. So the descendants of the victims, the other impacted community members, and, the descendants of those who were even perpetrators. And so they have offered to look at, some of the previous hearings to help us identify where we maybe would want to do more around follow-up questions to those who testify at our hearings, either before, during, or after the testimony, so that we can better engage them around the impact of the legacy and their recommendations for how we can promote healing in the community and put together our final report for recommendations. So I'm glad that Roisha, you and Greg are here today. And if Greg is available, maybe he can, for those, because the executive team has seen the proposal for the 3-day training, but I think it might be helpful for Greg you, Roisha, or Greg to sort of do a high level summary of what you could provide to the commission as part of the support that you give to grant recipients.
Absolutely. I'm going to
Sure, this is
to speak on that. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, this is Greg. Can you all hear me? I've had the internet today. I've had some challenges with the internet today, so I hope you can hear me okay. I'm gonna not turn my camera on because I've been having those challenges. I just got a meeting where I had to switch networks a couple of times. I think, Zanita, for a high level, I mean, just listening to you all talk. We did that presentation a few weeks ago. These are, you know, very challenging conversations. They're highly charged. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of, you know, wanting the past to stay in the past by some people. And some of the things that came up for you all was, how do you have trauma-informed interactions with people? How do you recognize if someone is starting to have a traumatic response, and what are some things that you can do about that? Using motivational interviewing as a vehicle to have those conversations with, open-ended questions that are trauma-informed, summaries that really capture what they're saying so they feel heard. You know, being able to have those kinds of those difficult conversations, you know, in a restorative kind of way. And one of the things that I shared is I've been doing restorative practices for about 25 years. And we have a whole range of models that we would, you know, that we could talk with you all about. But one of them that comes up is using a model, probably a modification of a model called high-risk dialogue. And it's used very often with surviving family members of murder victims, meeting with the person who's actually caused that. And so there's a whole model that goes with that can help prep people, help recognize where they're at. But it's a pretty powerful model that I think is something that we could help, you know, show you all and have you look at as maybe a hybrid to that, because your hearings are a little bit different than the way the model happens. But just again, you know, there was 3 parts to our presentation. It was, you know, doing some work with you on trauma-informed interactions, what happens to people, how trauma manifests itself in individuals, what to look for, not to label it, you know, as something else, but to understand that everyone responds in a very different way and to have that lens on, a vehicle of some motivational interviewing skills and tools, as well as an overview of kind of restorative practices, how they're used, you know, their history, the different kinds of models that exist, things like that. So that's where we've gotten in, I think, the conversation that we had last week. And that's where that tentative 2.5-day agenda came from. And as Zanita said, we can do some of that virtually. We can do it all in person. Some of the work with you all, if you want to do it, would probably be better in person. And then I think, Zanita, one thing you mentioned is maybe even having us listen to some of the hearings and offering some input on, you know, maybe some difficult conversations, how you might approach those a little bit differently. You know, just being able to look at those things and be supportive of you all, and even, you know, provide coaching if you needed it in different settings and different things that are happening. So I hope I captured that. I know I jumped into the middle of this meeting. I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely, very helpful. And what I'll do very quickly, and a pleasure to meet you, Greg, is I will bring up the draft agenda that was shared by Sophie, so that we can all see, and we'll make sure to share this with the full commission. Give me 1 second. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the draft agenda here. So as was mentioned, this will be over about 2.5 days. To address certain aspects, again, of really how we can do our work better and be mindful of what we uncover, how we uncover it, and then make sure that humanity remains at the forefront of our work. And certainly this would have benefits not just with the commission, but in all forms of restorative practices and restorative justice. So I think very valuable insight that I'm looking forward to being a part of when we schedule this time. But again, this is just kind of the tentative schedule that was shared with us. So again, I'll make sure to provide that to the commission so that we can all review and think about the best time to have this training. So I will say and ask if there are any immediate questions for Roisha or Greg at this time from commissioners. And if not, we can thank them and move on with our agenda.
Mr. Chair, if there aren't any questions from the commissioners, oh, nope, there's a question.
Oh, Commissioner, okay, there you go. Commissioner Mobley, I see, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for recognizing me, Commissioner Fakunle. It's nice to hear about the work. I did want to ask a question. This workshop seems fantastic. My question is about accessibility and how will we manage accessibility for both commissioners and public members who would like to attend.
So everything that we do meets BJA accessibility requirements. So we need to be aware of those. We can provide, closed captioning. We can provide sign. I mean, we can do all of that or work with people locally to do that. We have a whole e-learning division that actually helps us meet those needs and 508 compliance and all of that. But we have a team of e-learning experts that help us do that. So we just need to know what the need and decide, do we need to bring people in or can we do that locally? Roisha, anything to add to that?
Yeah, you cut out for a little bit there, but I'm glad you mentioned like the 508 compliance and things like that. We also have the option of doing it via webinar, and since everybody's kind of spread out. But our hope would be to do it in person, just because of the content. And outside of that, we are actually just waiting on Miss Anita and everybody's calendars to make it work. I hope that answers your question in terms of accessibility, because I didn't know if you meant more legal accessibility or like how will we all get together and do this. So we provide both in-person and webinar options, and both of those will be met with the compliance.
Thank you
Great,
both.
thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Mobley, for the question, and thank you both for the response. I also want to acknowledge what Reverend Tyker put in the chat, asking for an offering of that training to volunteer genealogists working within the county groups, and just the way that it would need to be shared, because volunteer basis, everyone has full-time jobs, but to have it virtual, I think would be accessible for them. So if that's something that could happen, I think that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I know we are here to serve you all. So whatever you best meets the need of this group, whether that is a virtual, presentation, that meets the need. If we're able to meet in person, we can come in person. Just honestly, whatever you all vote on and decide is how we will move forward.
Mm-hmm. And I would just say we have, with COVID, we have done all of this virtually. I think people always put in there, this was great, but, in person would have been better. There's always a group of people for that. We've done it all virtually. We've gotten very good reviews from people. So we've learned to do that over the last few years, and we've got some great platforms. So we certainly can do that. Obviously, the advantage of virtual is we can record it, and if people can't make it, they can watch it and be back up to speed for the next session. And we don't have to do it 2.5 days in a row. I mean, we did an entire conference over a month, which was 4 hours in the middle of the day, across the country, across 5 time zones. So, 10 to 2 in the central time zone. So people on either end could be part of it. And it was a 25-hour training that people, we use a Hova platform, which is like a conference platform. We've got other ones that we can use, but I mean, we've gotten used to doing this, and there are some advantages, obviously. I mean, then you can record these, and as new people come on board, you can have them watch, motivational interviewing, working with survivors of trauma. You can look at the implementation science piece. How do you successfully implement change? You can look at, trauma informed, and what does that look like? I think we even have a webinar up already that's about trauma informed interactions in the criminal justice setting with survivors. So like Rorisha said, we can do anything. And, sometimes the virtual stuff is easier for us with our associates as well, because of, a lot of them have full-time jobs or do this work so regularly that, wasting a day or spending a day on either end traveling is something that they often like to get back.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that insight, Greg. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for the flexibility, because I know that would definitely suit us as commissioners, as well as members of the public that want to have access to this information. So I thank you and Roisha for your willingness and for being servants. It was greatly appreciated. Any final questions for Greg or Roisha before we move on?
The last thing I'll say, and Marisha hinted at this, is that we will then, I guess, in terms of next steps, collect the availability of the commissioners and to offer, dates and times that work best for most. So we'll take that up, Roisha and Greg, and then get back to you as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Sounds
you
good.
for having me.
Of course. Appreciate y'all very much. Look forward to the continued collaboration and partnership. Very grateful
Thank
for your
you.
support.
Thank you all. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate you. We try. We try. All right. Moving on with our agenda. Is there any new business that needs to be shared?
Well, I've got a committee report still.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my apologies. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No
Commissioner
worries.
Arbus.
Thank you.
All right.
First and foremost, from the research committee, we are going to reinstitute a recurring monthly meeting. So I'm going to be getting this on, I'll say, all commissioners' calendars, and they can, working with the state archives staff and collaborators. So we're looking at the first Monday of each month at 3 p.m. For a couple of reasons. We want to have our research committee convenings ahead of each full commission meeting, so we have a more substantive report each month. So keep an eye out for that. If anybody who is currently in the research committee or would like to be has any questions, please let me know. But again, we should have that coming around as a calendar invite to all commissioners in the near future. So our first meeting of this reinstituted time would be, let me make sure that I'm saying the right thing. We would be looking at Monday, November 6th at 3 p.m. And as with the full commission meetings, these will be on Google Meet and recorded for, efficiency's sake, for the archiving of our conversations. And as far as the research committee is concerned, of course, that will be discussion of updates and processes from our collaborators at Heritage Associates, as well as moving forward on actually taking the research material and kind of implementing it, so to speak, with our public presentation of the case studies. So that kind of speaks to a couple of the main entities involved. So yeah, keep an eye out for that on the recurring meeting. And of course, the public are invited to register and participate in those as well. Speaking of Heritage Associates, and I'll try to keep these updates rather brief, but also welcome our partners to add anything to what I'm sharing if I'm missing it at the moment. But Heritage Associates, particularly around outreach and collaboration with descendants, have been refining their process after having been doing this for a little beyond a year and a half here at this point. Definitely lessons learned in terms of how we coordinate and communicate with potential descendants, others that want to join with the commission, but also making sure that information is recorded and distributed amongst the commission. So there's nothing, private about our collaboration with Heritage Associates and how those conversations are going. So I will distribute also that kind of revised formatting that they have proposed to the full commission. But essentially, we just want to do a better job of information sharing amongst commissioners, so that can help guide the process. We know that we have, professionals within our commission who have experience with various aspects of the work in research and genealogical components. So yeah, I think the best course of action to kind of update that better is to share around what they've shared with me, and we'll take any feedback of that through the research committee. So another update from me to keep an eye out for by email to the commissioners. That is also in talking with Commissioner Haley and bringing in the Maryland State Archives perspective and resources. Obviously been an incredible and really important partner in all of this work, not only because they have a lot of the records that inform the research that we're doing, but also because the Maryland State Archives and the state government behind them are supporting the hosting of content online. And again, I would welcome Mr. Haley to add on if he would like. But essentially, we've done a lot of work in compiling primary sources, whether that be commissioners working with the local coalitions or other independent researchers. Primary and secondary sources have been coming our way throughout the course of the 4 years that we've been working on this commission. But how do we actually take that material and put it to best use, attach it to our web presence in different ways, update the narratives of the victims of racial terror lynching that exist on the Maryland State Archives page, the hosted area for the MLTRC. So the Maryland State Archives has been refining their process behind the scenes as well in terms of creating specific series for the archival material, so that it's not just going into a void or just attached on people's emails, but making sure that we actually get all of that in one place and attach it to the right stories, so people beyond the life of the commission can learn what we've been able to compile. So I guess we would just like to reiterate that there is a public mechanism to share materials with the commission, and I'm going to drop that link in the chat right now. And also internally for commissioners, we have a Google Drive that kind of acts as our collaborative platform, and often that means sharing PDFs of primary sources, research materials that can help us better understand the cases that we are telling the truth about. So I would reiterate that if you have any questions about how to share materials or how to have conversation about what materials reveal, in order to give the public a better view of what we've learned and what we can update as a commission, please feel free to reach out to myself or to the general MLTRC email, also hosted by the Maryland State Archives. And again, November 6th and the recurring research meetings will be another good forum to have those discussions of, like, what do we do with the information now that we have it, essentially.
Thank you, Commissioner Armenti, for that report, for that feedback and thoughts. It brought to mind, especially when you're talking about how we share this information with the public. Great segue. Appreciate you for it. I want to acknowledge among us Dr. Arnott Kurtzer, who Commissioner Creary and I have been connecting with for the past few months, along with Dr. Eric Biebelhaus-Braun. Dr. Kurtzer is out of Montclair State University in New Jersey. Dr. Biebelhaus-Braun is out of University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and they have been collaborating with us along with the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project on a grant that they're pursuing around digital humanities. So it is through NEH, National Endowment of the Humanities, and part of this funding would help the MLTRC to present the work of the commission in a format that is accessible and that is digestible to the public. Not to put you on the spot, Dr. Kurtzer, if you want to quickly introduce yourself, that would be greatly appreciated, but I definitely wanted to acknowledge your presence in our meeting and say thank you for joining us.
Sure. Thank you so much, David, for giving me a second here. And I want to just reiterate Will Swartz and the entire team, everyone that was there on Saturday in at Goucher College was really amazing to see the work. And as you said, David, it's really important that the work gets carried out, but then also that the broadest possible audience gets access to it. And so I work a lot with digital archives and very much about inclusion and access. And so we're hoping in the months and the period to come to work with you closely so that we can get a grant off the ground and involve as many sort of local communities, researchers, and students alike to really continue that collective work. And so I'll certainly keep you posted, and we're in touch. And I'm grateful to be here today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. All right, moving on with our agenda.
I think Chris may have
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
add on.
Yeah, I'm
from
sorry,
the State
Commissioner. Yeah,
Archives
Commissioner Haley.
perspective.
My apologies. Yeah.
No problem, no problem. I just wanted to show something along the lines of what David had mentioned is how we are trying to add some of the findings that we have found through what comes through the uploader, which is what he just gave you the link to, which our plan is that we've created a special collection. Special collections are materials that are not specifically governed by any level of government, which is to say they're not state level, county level, or municipality. They are private entities. An individual would have donated them to us. They could have donated a report to us, or actually, if by any chance we were ever to find a postcard of a lynching or a bit of rope, they would be incorporated within special collections. So within that, for those materials that we have received from outside sources, our special collections department has created a resource collection number, which is going to incorporate all of these materials that we've received. And when we have all these, we're going to start connecting them individually to whichever lynching that we have documented, and also for any of those that perhaps we do come up with, or any of the commissioners come up with during the time of our commission in its existence, and certainly for the archives further past our sunset dates. Within that, one thing that was very beneficial, which I think I mentioned at an earlier meeting, is that we were able to work with a grad student from George Mason University through Dr. Chavis, whose name was Andre Arcia Decano, I think. And what I had him look through were the governor's general files. Specifically, we targeted certain dates around 1898 is one that we really looked at, because I really asked what his interest was, because we've certainly felt at the archives, whenever you have a student or an intern, there's certainly a project that you yourself as an institution want to have worked on, but then you also want to try to align that with an interest that the student has, so that it's more of a synergy of what they feel good about, what they feel an interest in, and what you can benefit from their passion for it. So with Andre, he mentioned around the turn of the century. So within that, one of the ones that he focused on was, or we tried to focus on, was Wright Smith. And we're very fortunate that we did find some. And so if I can share my screen, I'm going to show you just a little bit of what this looks like and what we will continue to do as the material presents itself. So let me see if I go present now. And this should be right. Okay, if this is working right, you should see the biographical series and Wright Smith, 1842 to 1898. So that being the page from our Maryland State Archives website. Then look at archival sources down at the bottom of the page. And these last 1, 2, 3, 4 entries are just what we recently were able to discover due to the assistance of Andre. And here's one I'm going to click to, which I think is very, in and of itself, very informative, and just opens your mind. Oh my gosh, what else is out there? Because it's not easy to find within the correspondence, or actually the general file. It is alphabetical by the name of the person who either sent the correspondence or received it. So it could be the governor, it could be the state's attorney, it could be any lawyer, it could be a citizen. So in that sense, when you go the alphabet of A, it's not going to be the Attorney General. It could be someone whose last name is Allen or Alexander. So it's very challenging, and you really have to look through everything one after another. So with that said, this first document that he found is, as you can see, the Pinkerton's National Detective Agency. And this is June 15th, 1898. And it says, Richard Dallam, who is the Secretary of State of Maryland at that time, Dear Sir, I'm in receipt of your letter of the 14th, enclosing letter of introduction to Honorable Robert P. Graham at Salisbury, Maryland, relative to our services which you require in the lynching cases. I will detail one of our men suitable for the work, having him arrive in Salisbury on Friday of this week and present himself to Mr. Graham. Our man can probably report verbally to Mr. Graham, and I will have copies of his written report sent direct to you. Now, let me just, the elephant in the room, we have not found the reports. So certainly as soon as we saw that, we thought, oh, where are these reports? We have not been able to find them yet. We certainly are on the lookout, but we have not been able to find them yet. So that was June 15th. June 16th, to Richard Dallam again. Dear Sir, I received your telegram of today as follows. Mr. Graham requests that your agent report to him at Salisbury 10 Saturday morning of this week instead of Friday, and I will arrange accordingly to have our man at Salisbury on Saturday morning. From the Pinkerton's Agency, June 16th. August 13th, Dear Sir, replying to your letter of the 12th instant, I beg to state that I have today ordered the operative engaged on the Eastern Shore lynching matter to discontinue and return here. So why did he do that? Why did he have this person stop his research effort? We don't know for sure, but here's a letter that is subsequent to that. August 6th. See, that one was August 13th. So this is before that. Dear Sir, enclosed, please find our bill for services and expenses in the case of quote unquote lynchings up to and including July 31st, 1898, amounting to $519.21. Again, that's $519.21 in 1898, which is a significant amount of money. November 4th, so near the end of the year. Enclosed, please find our bill for services and expenses of the case of lynchings at Annapolis, which we do believe is Wright Smith, in full, amounting to $179.34. Yours truly, Pinkerton's Agency. And then we finally have in 1898, June 1st, a little bit earlier, we herewith enclosed New York draft of the Second National Bank, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for $25 being deposited for required under the laws of Maryland, Acts of 1898. You will please issue your certificate to the Pittsburgh Lamp and Brass Company in accordance with necessary papers which go to you on separate cover. We haven't been able to find exactly what that means, but we wonder if it has to do with a weapon that was used in the case of the lynching. Because this next correspondence, June 1st, Dear Sir, I will reply to you for a copy of the law which at present operative in the state of Maryland, referring to the carrying or being in possession of burglar's tools, because we believe in one of these instances, a burglar's tools or something the equivalent of that might have been used in one of these lynchings. But in the middle of this, what we are wondering about, and we can't be sure yet, we haven't found any more correspondence, is perhaps the Pinkerton agency said, stop doing this research because you haven't paid us this bill. That's literally what we think it is. Mm-hmm. The lynchings is prior to the Wright Smith lynching, I believe. So we're wondering which ones that is referring to, because it could, again, this is the Secretary of State, so it's not just about Salisbury. Whereas the latter one, 179-34, lynching at Annapolis, we're pretty sure is about Wright Smith specifically. So this is just to give you an idea of the type of research we are able to find when we have resources and when we are able to get students such as Commissioner Armenti mentioned, that are able to really go deep dive into the materials that we have. But certainly Commissioner Curry is aware of when he had his students help him out when he was at Bowie. And that's all I'm going to share today.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Haley. I see a couple of hands. I will start with Commissioner Hughes, and then I'll come to you, Commissioner Curry.
Thanks. I just had a quick question for Chris, and that was the manner in which the materials have been indexed. Is that just simply sort of an archival best practice? It seems like a way to bury the material in a sense, you know, not having any kind of subject keyword way to index them? Or is that simply the way it was done at the time when the material was accessioned?
My impression is that the material at the time it was a session is just to capture everything that you possibly can. And then subsequent to that, it's up for us today, or who have an interest, to decide if we're going to subsequently decide to put them in subject order. I think at that point, it was more about, this is the governor, this is the Secretary of State, this is the Attorney General, and these are all the materials that they received, basically from a, it's not, I can't even say it's not even chronological, it's just everything. And so since it is everything, the best you can look for is that chronological, by year, by month, and alphabetical. Because I guess at that point, they really weren't thinking, years from now, people will be looking for just the lynchings. Years from now, people were looking for just the one other student who was looking around 1911 or 1912, because we were looking for the lynching of King Johnson, information about him, was finding a lot of information, or a lot of inquiries about licenses to drive. Because of course, around that time, it was kind of a new thing and not everybody could drive. It's not like every day. And there were a lot of petitions asking for permissions for a driver's license. Now, of course, in subsequent years, you're probably not thinking, oh, we want to put these all under the Department of Transportation, things of that sort. You're just, this is all the governor and persons in the State Department were Department of State were getting. Let's just all put them in here. That's my belief in it.
Thanks.
Commissioner Creary, I see you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Haley, for sharing that. I mean, just absolutely fascinating. I mean, I was familiar with the Pinkertons and their involvement with the King Johnson case, but this, you know, again, is potentially groundbreaking information. But what I wanted to talk about, you know, just briefly with regard to the research committee, I know I've said in more than one occasion, one of the recommendations I would like to make is that we, you know, consider, you know, issuing posthumous indictments, you know, for people, you know, as we're starting to learn the names of members of the lynch mobs. You know, I think of Commissioner Chavis's book and the tremendous work that he has done to identify members of the mobs that were involved on the Eastern Shore with the Matthew Williams and George Armwood lynchings. And so I'm thinking, you know, I know we have, you know, our colleagues at Heritage Associates working feverishly to try to find, you know, descendants of victims of these crimes. But I'm wondering if, you know, and again, if we need to, you know, put in or use some of the money that we'll hopefully get, you know, the additional funding that we get from Emmett Till, you know, to maybe start identifying descendants of those members of the mobs that have been identified, so that we can contact their descendants, you know, so that if and when we do issue those indictments, we can at least say, hey, you know, we're gonna, you know, give you a heads up, you know, we're going to be doing this. If you would like to say anything, if you would like to, you know, and that way invite their testimony and participation in the process, rather than having us issue subpoenas. And again, I think it's significant to note that we have issued our first subpoena to the city of Salisbury. So thank you to our colleagues and staff who've been supporting us from the Attorney General's office for making that happen. But I just wanted to maybe put that on your radar. I'm sure, you know, we don't need to expand your scope of work, but if we can find the resources to enable that to happen, I think that would be a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Greer, for your thoughts. Really appreciate it. Commissioner Mobley, I see your hand.
Sure. I was just having a thought related to what Commissioner Creary was saying and thinking about restorative practices. If we move to automatically, and this is a question, if we move to automatically sort of indict folks, do descendants get a say in that? In other words, might there be some descendants who would say that's not the restorative practice that would make us feel as descendants whole or resolved? Then if they say that, do we still move forward? Like, just trying to think about, like, what are some of the restorative practices around indicting when we're still finding possible descendants, and or maybe those are two very separate issues, and just sort of wanting to hear from folks.
Well, I mean, the commission is all about setting precedents, so that's very much something that could be a part of what we introduce in terms of restorative practice and making sure it's grounded in the people that we're looking to really provide healing for the most, which would be the descendants of racial terror lynching victims. So I am very much open to their guidance as to what would be conducive to their healing and conducive to justice for them. So I like that idea, Commissioner Mobley. Thank you for introducing it. Do others have thoughts on that?
I was going to say, I think it's also a great question that I don't have a ready answer for, but I would say that the Baltimore County Memorial Project might be a good consultant on that particular issue, given that during that hearing, there was testimony from a perpetrator descendant, which I thought was a particularly powerful. However, I don't know that there was I'd have to go back on the notes in the recording. I don't believe there was a direct lineal descendant of the victim in the case of Howard County or Baltimore County. So, perhaps leaning on some of our coalition partners that might give a more, real example of how these situations played out.
Commissioner Haley, I see your hand.
Yes, I think that's a very important topic that Commissioner Mobley brought up, and very valid. And I'll just give an example of what I think should be or could be considered within it. I feel that whatever we discover as a historical entity and as a commission regarding lynching is something that should be revealed, because it's our mandate, and it's why we're here. It's why we were formed, to make sure that the perpetrators and the victims are known, and so that is shared, so that those persons who have experienced trauma from it can get a sense of acknowledgement and perhaps justice, if that is what they individually and personally want to receive. I think that's where getting in touch with descendants has to be very nuanced in a way to just give them the first, I guess, say so about, this is what we found. We believe with our genealogists that this person, perpetrator or victim, is related to you. We have open hearings where people can speak to this, either from a place of remorse or regret, or, for want of a better term, recrimination or catharsis. However, if you do not want to participate in this commission, we are not going to compel you to do that, because that would be something that I think would harm us, would harm our goal, and would harm because then it would be like, we're going to do what we're going to do regardless of what the people who are affected by it emotionally feel. And I say that from 20 years ago, specifically 20 years ago, there was a racial and reconciliation walk that was done in Annapolis, Maryland. And it was done at City Dock, and it was called the Lifeline Expedition. It was a group of people who started in London. They went around the world. It was a big deal. It was attended by, I don't remember the Attorney General, but not the governor, but some major people. I think the mayor attended it too at City Dock. And what happened in this presentation was that Black people and white people, American and of African descent, would walk in coffles, or a facsimile of a coffle from the slave route that we have from from different areas in Annapolis down to City Dock, which is, of course, the site of the Kunta Kinte Alex Haley Memorial. I will tell you that my family specifically did not want to be included in that specifically. We did not. However, the organizers, to be honest, did not respect that. They said, no, this is a community effort. This is something we're going to do. And regardless of what your family wants to do, we're doing this. And so at that point, my father said, well, Chris, if they're going to do it anyway, then please be involved, help in whichever way you can. So I ended up co-writing with other individuals the script for this experience. But I would tell you that was a very, very challenging experience and a very draining and emotionally hard experience. Even though it ended up well, I ended up hugging Lanny Rideout, who's a descendant of the guy who was the person who sold Kunta Kinte to the Virginian slaveholder. But that is a memory that I have about the right cause brings in people connected full front without their consent. And I just don't want us to follow that same path, if at all possible. Thank you.
No, thank you, Commissioner Haley. That provides a lot of context, and I think really informs what we don't want to do, as you said. Commissioner Creer, I'll come to you, and then Commissioner Mobley, I'll come to you.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for sharing that, Chris. That was, yeah, tremendously important, tremendously powerful. And again, I'm not advocating that we subpoena, these descendants, but, really to give them an opportunity to participate if they want to. I think one of the things, we know, and this was something that Juliet Heinley mentioned in her testimony, at the Baltimore County hearing, was that, because of this now, they no longer have the anonymity that, the whole process of lynching afforded them. And so, yeah, the symbolic, identifying them and charging them, I think is tremendously important. But, and again, I mean, with the whole idea of restorative practice, and I go back to, again, thinking about Ubuntu, that collective humanity that we share, the idea is, for the people who have been harmed to have a significant say in the process, but ideally, the people, who are all, who perpetrated those harms are there in the conversation too. And so I think this might be a way to identify them and hopefully bring them into the conversations for what justice and accountability should look like. That's kind of my hope. I mean, I don't want to come across being, yes, let's indict them all, let's subpoena everybody we can. No, I mean, we have to be mindful of and thoughtful about, how we approach people and invite them. But I think, if that is, a road we choose to go down, we should at least try to do what we can to do right by the descendants of the people in the lynch mobs too.
Absolutely. Commissioner Mobley, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, thank you so much for this rich conversation. This has just been really rich and fruitful, and thank you for indulging sort of my curiosity and question asking. It makes me wonder if there are two things at stake. One is which there's a restorative justice practice that is governmental or by the state, and there is a restorative practice for descendants, which we are helping to facilitate. And in some cases, those goals may overlap and how the approach to them may overlap, but in other cases, they really might not. And so perhaps one of the restorative practices that we need to be mindful of is outlining very clearly for descendants what next steps look like, what options look like, and a whole slew of sort of what restorative practice could mean. Now, that said, that sounds like a restorative practice for a descendant might look very different from what is our accountability for restorative practice as a government entity in terms of naming, claiming, and identifying what happened, when, where, and how. And so I think that's also very helpful to reiterate, as Chris did, like our purpose around why we are doing this, and people cannot remain unnamed. Secondarily, and not to be like overly litigious, but I am a native Washingtonian. So I'm just saying, like, I didn't know you could be something other than a lawyer until I went to college. I just thought everyone went to law school. But, you know, the other piece about this is that we want to be very protective of descendants, because we want to be mindful that if they're calling for an indictment or some such thing, and someone feels like they've been revealed on the descendant perpetrator side, will they try to hold the descendant liable for something like libel or defamation, because they're associated? Do you see what I'm saying? So if we split it out and make our role of identification really clear, so that that protects the descendants, so that they're not being possibly targeted if people are unhappy with what's been revealed.
No, thank you for that, Commissioner Mobley. That's an important aspect to be mindful of, for sure. So we know we certainly have further discussion that's needed in order to parse this out. I agree with the notion of bringing these things to light. We know that there are going to be consequences, and I mean that in the most neutral sense, not positive or negative, but just the fact that there will be outcomes as a result of whatever moves we make in terms of, again, bringing this history to the forefront, which I do think is our priority. We certainly want to make sure that it is done with the really the emotions and the thoughts and the feelings of descendants in mind. If this is something that they will support, but again, acknowledging that if they want no part of this, we will not coerce them. That is not our goal and not our intent. But certainly having that thoughtfulness of their consideration, I think, makes a huge difference, which is why we have put the efforts into discover as many descendants of racial terror lynching victims as we can, so that we can make sure our work and bringing this history to life is with that in mind. So very grateful for these discussions as well, and we certainly have much more to discuss in this regard. So thank you all for your insight and everything that you shared. All right, moving on with our agenda. Is there any new business to share? I feel like we kind of already did the new business in a way, but I'll make space for any actual new business that there may be. Sophie, yes, I see your hand.
Yes, so I wanted to provide an update. Let me just pull up the email. We have been, or the commission has been awarded an additional $175,000 in federal funding of the $167,000 that we asked for. So we received more than we asked for. So,
all right.
And I could put in
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm being extra. My apologies.
And I'll just put in the chat the write-up that what we were seeking for everyone's information. Well, I mean, or I'll just read it out. But we were seeking funding to continue to increase the project manager's work, to fund services of a marketing and a public relations person, to allow the commission to hire a consultant, and provide an analysis. So we were approved with the funding.
That's what's up. Claps all around. Yes. Claps all around. That's awesome. Wonderful news. All right, guys. So we got more work to do and more money to do it with. So that's also good. Great new business. I can't think of any other new business that I want to talk about. But if there's any other new business, floor is open. Good luck topping that, though. All right, no new business. Okay, fair enough. That was great. Moving on, any announcements that any commissioners want to share? And to members of the public, if you have any announcements that you would like to share, please feel free to do so in the chat so that we have that on record. But commissioners, any new business, any announcements that we want to share at this time? Yes, Commissioner Haley, I see your hand.
Yes, I'm going to be doing a fireside chat with author Clint Smith on November 1st at the Weinberg Center in Frederick County, Maryland. in honor of, I think, the Heritage Center at Frederick County Preservation. I'm getting the name wrong. There's different things out there, but he's going to give a talk that night. I think it begins at 6:30, maybe for about 40 minutes or so. We are having questions for him being submitted, which I'm going to start the fireside chat with, and then probably facilitate some other open discussion on that date. There are tickets available now. I believe I'm trying to look for the actual. Put that in the chat right now. Hopefully that's accessible. Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Haley. Any other announcements? All right. Hearing none and seeing none, I will move to adjourn, but we're going to move into a closed session. So the meeting will continue in a closed session. So do I have a motion to adjourn and close the meeting to the public, and we'll continue in closed session?
So moved.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Curry. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Mobley. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, the motion carries. So now we will continue in closed session. So to members of the public, we thank you for being here, for your time and for your energy, and again, for holding us accountable. We will continue to provide updates on work, and we will have our next business meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 13th. Monday, November 13th from 11:30 a.m. Eastern to 1:30 p.m. Eastern. So we hope to see you there. Thank you once again. Commissioners, please stay on the line as we transition to our closed session. Thank you.